There we go. And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to yet another exciting edition of Powering Good with Hitachi Vantara. It's our 6-part podcast series, episode 2. I'm Dalin Oliver, comedian, trying to host with a gentleman who is extremely smart, a gentleman whose brain I enjoy picking. Episode 1 was really fun. I got to know a lot of academic terms, but also a lot of terms that could translate to the layman so that all of us can understand. And ladies and gentlemen, today we're chatting about the depletion of natural resources. It's all about sustainability. We're living in that era where that is the buzzword, and rightfully so. So, Hitachi Vantara country manager and sales director joins me, Dennis Naidoo. Dennis, what's happening, brother?
Yeah, all good, Dalin. Good to see you again, and always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm not so sure about the super smart bit. I just read well, and I remember well, and some things resonate, yeah. But happy to be.
You don't understand. When we were chatting last week in episode 1, and I was picking up all these words and these terms, I was sitting there like, you know, when you're a young university student, just sitting in your first lecture, taking notes. So I hang on to those words, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. Just by virtue of conversation and chatting with you now, is that all something that you pick up naturally? Are you one of those guys who have a photographic memory? Do you just remember stuff off the cuff? Would you say absorb knowledge easily?
I think it's a combination, Dalin. I think you get some people who just they're like sponges. They just remember and recall everything, and they can spew off stats. It's all good. I find that I retain and understand and remember things that are relevant in terms of what is purpose, right? So if something resonates, when you start off your day with a noble intent and you want to make a change, you want to do something, and that's always in a part of your fabric, then you will tend to remember the things that resonate with that. And you tend to irrigate that a lot more, and you want to understand it a bit more. Topics like sustainability, you want to understand it because it's relevant. It's something that resonates with what we should be doing, with our purpose, right? So those things I remember well. But, you ask me to remember, algebra from matric, it's hard, or there's certain dates in history lessons that I don't even know why we had to learn those things and remember them. But
yeah.
Maybe it's relevant for other people, and maybe it serves their purpose, but certainly not mine. But I just love reading about, and I double click on things that are relevant, that have meaning, that make a difference in the world, and certainly make me a better human being,
Good people, man. You mentioned algebra, and it took me back to a memory of when I was studying. So I did first year maths for 3 years. I'm going to say that again. I did first year maths for 3 years. But the biggest problem was that we had a study group of 6 friends, and there was only one smart guy. And a lot of the time he wasn't there. So then it was just 5 guys talking.
The blind leading the blind.
Not helping each other at all. Listen, sustainability 2022 and beyond. Now more than ever, extremely crucial. And people are more and more aware compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago. Why so? We all know why, but we need to know why so.
Yeah, so just to zoom out a little bit of the sustainability topic, it's in one of 5 mega trends we identified in podcast 1. We're starting off with this one because I think it's one that we're all familiar with, right? Some of the mega trends we spoke about last time, they're kind of in their genesis, they're kind of still evolving. The topics are still being fleshed out. There's a lot of debate, but this one has been around for a long time. I recall as a kid, being told not to waste water, to save electricity. We were told back in high school, if you go back to those times, we're going to run out of natural resources. We're going to run out of oil, and then slowly that conversation developed, right? And this is the nature of a mega trend. A mega trend is something that happens over a long period of time. It takes debate. It takes, multiple stakeholders from government to private sector to, interested parties that want to understand what the impact is of a mega trend. And sustainability has been around for a long time. We all recall the topics around saving the rainforest. We all recall topics around saving, endangered species. And it's not just for posterity. We have a real problem. And as the days go by, the problem gets worse and worse, right? We have not taken enough measures to address the problems. We understood what the problem would be. We understood the impact. Far too much debate, if you ask me, and not enough people nailing their colors to the mast saying, we're going to make a change. We want to do something. It's only recently that you find these KPIs in a board pack, sustainability goals, emission control. It's only recently that you're starting to see that as the KPIs of the board. And until it's taken seriously, until it's a KPI that you measure on, it's never gonna, it doesn't drive the right behavior, right? Because people are measured on it. So it's only now that we're starting to see that going. We're in the middle of the COP22 deliberations taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh this week, from the 14th to the 18th of November. And we've got all of these countries sitting around tables and looking at what have we achieved, where are we now, have some of the goalposts shifted, recalibrating that, and some really scary stats coming out of that, right? So the summary of that whole thing, and it's still not over yet, is that we're even if we were to achieve the goals we set out to achieve in previous COP sessions, we will not be able to limit the decline and the regression in terms of global warming.
Dennis, we are in such an interesting space. How to save the world, that's the big question. And everyone must play their part. And the reason I say this is because when you mention something small, like remember when you're growing up and your mom would say, close the tap, don't waste water. And the child response is, it doesn't affect me. Why? What do you mean? We're never going to run out of water. And I'm based in Cape Town. We've had a day zero. In Gqeberha, there's a scarcity of water. In South Africa, there's scarcity of a lot of our natural resources. And if we just look at the depletion of it in a larger scale, specifically, let's look at gas, oil, and coal. Can you give us more insight there? What's happening? Are we winning? Are we losing? How do we make it work?
So, look, you hit the nail on the head, right? Everyone sees it as it's not my problem, and it's not an immediate problem that affects me. So, and we can talk about all of these different topics, but let's talk about these two. So one is, oil, gas, and coal. That's the source of energy. And then the other one is water. Let's talk about those two for today, right? Now let's talk about energy. We're all in the middle of an energy crisis, right? And all sorts of implications in terms of renewable energy, generation plants, distribution of electricity grids, the failing infrastructure around energy grids, etc. These are all hot topics. Now, you said something. You said when we were told of these things in high school, I've got to go back 30 years, right? 30 years ago, we were told, we're going to run out of oil, we're going to run out of gas, we're going to have a problem with the internal combustion engine. You're now starting to see a plethora of different EV vehicles being manufactured
Yes.
But does it solve the problem? No. When we sat back 30 years ago and we said we're going to run out of gas, somebody said oil or coal. It was 100 years away, 150 years away. And in our minds, that would be something that our great-grandchildren would have to deal with. Somewhere along the line, we probably also sat down very lethargically and said, it's actually somebody else's problem. They'll solve it. Some smart guy somewhere along the line is going to invent something or change the game for us. And that hasn't happened. Okay. As things stand today, the estimates are we have another 30, and the most optimistic estimate for coal is 150 years. Now let's take the average between those two. 30 to 150 years. Let's call it 60 to 80 years. We're around 60 to 80 years. So it's no longer my great-grandchildren. It'll be my kids. It starts to hit home, right? What kind of a world am I leaving for my kids and my grandkids? I'm likely to live to see my grandkids. And the sad part is I might also be able to see and witness the difficulty they're going to have as my kin. Now it starts to hit home. The clock is ticking. So if you look at all of those, gas, oil, and coal, estimates anywhere between 50 to 80 years.
It's such a scary number. It's such a you said. But we could still be thinking we're going to bribe and have a liquor time. And then we're in the middle of a crisis. And then every year there's a new crisis. Because in our minds, as people on the ground, we think, it'll blow over. It'll be fine. Yeah.
Well, this is the problem, right? This is the complacency as society. Now, everyone could sit back and say, well, it's the ANC's problem to solve, or it's Biden's problem to solve, or it's Elon Musk's problem to solve. Somewhere along the line, our kids are going to be fine. But if there is no behavioral change in society, then we all have a cumulative problem. We live in a world where we have become accustomed to instant gratification.
Yeah.
I want to drink a bottle of water, or buy a bottle of water. That's $30 for a bottle of water. Okay. Times 5 people a day in your family, times 365 days. That's the amount of water we consume, and that's the amount of plastic we generate. A simple solution would be a filtration system in your own house, and you fill up your tap and fill up your bottle. Okay. So in our own homes, do we take the necessary steps to leave a smaller footprint on the planet? So do we recycle? Do we save water? Do we switch off the lights? I know it's a dad joke, right? Switch off the lights before you go to bed.
Yes.
It's a reality.
It's a reality. And only once you move out on your own did you understand why your dad was telling you that all the time.
100%.
So well done.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the other problem here is that the source, let's zoom out of the coal, gas, oil story. What are they used for? What do they need?
Yeah.
It's a source of energy.
Yes.
Energy to drive things, to make things work. That's what we need. We need energy. So we need energy to drive our cars, to power up our house, our appliances, to fly the planes, for heating up the pool, even for managing the pump stations to bring water to people, or to bring, services to society. So we need energy for all of these things. But as human beings, we're the only species that consumes and doesn't give back.
Yes.
We take a plant, a simple plant, whether it's a flower or a fruit or whatever it is. The plant lives in a symbiotic relationship with the world. So it takes something, so it absorbs energy, and through a process of photosynthesis, it does some magic. We're using that energy, natural energy. What does it give? It gives food. Okay? It gives shade. It gives oxygen.
Yeah.
It lives in an ecosystem. It exists in an ecosystem that's symbiotic. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie The Matrix, but in one, and I think it was the first one, where the alien guy in the black suit, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And he says to I think it was one of the others, he says, he's been struggling to understand human beings, the species, and what do they do? And he mentioned this. He says every other species, animal or plant, exists in an ecosystem where it is symbiotic, and yet a human being is taking things but never gives back. And he says there's only one other species that does that, and that's a virus. So I've come to the conclusion that human beings are just a virus.
Give us some more credit, Dennis. But no, I know you. That's the culture. It's take. What's in it for me? How do I benefit? Instant gratification. It's fine if I don't make an effort at home to save water, to save electricity, to be a better human, because I'm going to be gone in a few years and it doesn't impact me. That's 100% true. But now, okay, so you mentioned oil, gas, and coal. Now, we live in a world where I think now more than ever, technology is at its peak. We're living in a great time in terms of access and giving alternates. So maybe 50 years ago, this was option A, and that was the only option. It's 2022. You usually have option A, B, C, or D. What's the option? Is there an option that runs around between coal, oil, and gas? Are we fortunate enough, given the vast natural resources and access that we have?
Okay, let's recalibrate the exam question then. So in the absence of these things, what should we be doing? Okay, not what is the alternate energy source.
Okay.
should we be doing? Currently, we have a huge dependency on batteries. Okay. Now, generation of energy, you have multitude of sources. So the sun is a constant. The sun can power the entire globe. Every single energy requirement we have. The challenge is harnessing it and storing it. Storing it is the big problem. Therefore, we need the batteries. So the batteries store the energy that we can then consume at our leisure. So let's examine that statement for a second. Why do we need to consume energy at our leisure? Because the way the world operates, you take a plant, for example, it would absorb sunlight when the sunlight is available. It would store it in some of its cells for later use. But during the night, it is not consuming energy. We live in a world, this instant gratification world, where we want to live 24/7. We want everything to work 24/7. So even if you don't need it, it must be on. The light must be on in the passage. The microwave must stay on because we want to have a snack in the middle of the night. So we keep everything on. So we keep everything on and we just consume a lot of energy. So there's two parts to this. Lithium and batteries, so the biggest or the most favorable storage commodity is lithium. But lithium also has 30 years, okay, in terms of its availability. So what's the next one?
Why do you say it only has 30 years?
Well, we're mining lithium. So the natural availability of lithium is 30 years. After 30 years, there's not going to be any more lithium left unless you find more. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like it's a finite resource, just like gas, just like oil. What we're simply doing is replacing one finite resource, another finite resource. What we're not doing is finding an infinite source or harnessing an infinite source of energy.
Yes.
Or wind, or the waves in the ocean. I was out I went to see a customer yesterday, and I was watching a few people kite surfing. And he said to me that, over Christmas or during the festive season, just thousands of these people kite surfing. And I said, well, why don't we stick a dynamo underneath each of these kite surfers? And as they're riding, it generates electricity. So 1,000 people recreationally creating electricity. Right? Or
Yeah.
The problem we have is not a priority for everyone. So we rely on COP to make policy and to create some expectations and set some targets. But those are guardrails. Who actually has to execute on it? So some wait for government waits for private sector. We can only achieve that in partnership with private sector and government. Got to work together to find these solutions. So whilst big companies and their megalomaniac owners or CEOs are investing on journeys to the moon, what are you going to find there? Another finite resource that we're going to raid? Why aren't we using the same money to find ways to harness more power in the country, on the continent, on the planet? So I said that it's not a priority because, even private sector, the egos overtake function, event, and intent. Spend money on all the wrong things. So lithium, we will run out of lithium. The other big problem with lithium, or any mining for that matter, is that mining by its nature is energy intensive. It's labor intensive. So what you end up doing is extracting a resource that causes harm to the planet anyway. Because removing these raw materials from the earth will result in soil degradation, water shortages, because you use a lot of water to cool down the plants for all of this stuff. You'll have a biodiversity loss. You'll kill off certain species that exist within those ecosystems. You'll have damage to the ecosystem functions that brings the imbalance in terms of how species exist in a certain space. And that in turn will start to lead to an increase in global warming. So while we are trying to find a solution for the energy problem, we're actually exacerbating the problem even more.
Yes.
It's a vicious cycle.
We're not making our lives easier. It's a vicious cycle, and I don't want to say it's capitalist driven. I'm a comedian. I just tell jokes. But if history was to repeat itself, it's capitalist driven. And so this was my biggest thing, and especially South Africans' biggest thing once the droughts occurred. So Gqeberha Eastern Cape, Western Cape. We went, there's the ocean. There's water in the ocean. How are we running out of water if we can see water? Now, that might sound like a silly question, but if someone who's not in the academic space or not in the space where you're putting measures in place to save the world, save the planet, make things easier going forward, it's a very valid question. 70% of the planet is made up of water. Why are we not using this water to our advantage as human beings to make sure that there's sustainability and we're just being good human beings going forward?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, so look, you're shy to say it, but I'll say it. Capitalism is a problem, right? So money feeds the system.
Yeah.
The cost of desalination is very prohibitive. So it's a lot less expensive to take fresh water from the dams and from the rivers and all of that and clean them and pipe it to the homes, right? But to do desalination is a challenge. To do desalination, it takes typically 7 stages. Okay, and each stage is extremely costly. Now you take a city like Dubai or the UAE, and their drinking water 80% is from the ocean, right? It's a desert, right? But their water, their golf courses, every hotel's got water, every home's got water. There's pump stations, everything. So Hitachi actually is quite a pioneer in that space. So what Hitachi does is instead of 7 cycles or 7 processes, is collect grey water out of the stormwater drains in the Bay of Durban, for example, and blend it with the seawater. So you already removed 3 out of the cycle, and then you have a less costly modus to bring to clean the water and to purify the water. So there are many things you can do. Now, you're 100% right. 70% of the planet has got water. Or if we were to harness desalination as an example, you'd start to improve availability of fresh water to everybody. Not everyone lives on a coast, though, and it's costing water inland. But so a company or a government that has a limited fiscus frown upon spending the money on something that could solve a problem. But what is the agenda? Is it driven by purpose and noble intent, or is it driven by profits and profitability, right?
Yeah, that's the big question. Who's in the hot seat and who's the signing of power to make sure that there's heart attached to it? I think it was a week or 2 ago. I'm not sure. I speak under correction. But I think we hit 8 billion in terms of population as the planet. Now, we're speaking about water. Do we have enough water for everyone, Dennis? We're having droughts. People are running out of water.
No.
So many people don't have access to running water. The population is increasing and increasing. How are we going to do this, bruh?
Yeah, so look, that exacerbates the underlying problems. So firstly, you have a delinquent society. So forget the 8 billion, the 9 million, the 10 billion, or even if we had 5 billion people, if the 5 billion people do not behave in a manner that sustains water, then you already have a problem. Now you add to it the growth in population who behave in the same delinquent manner. There are really kind of 7 big reasons why we have a water crisis. 1, we're changing the climate. We're making dry areas drier and precipitation more variable and extreme. So we saw it last week in Johannesburg. You get a sudden, we're at the start of summer and we had no rain since September. So it should have been spring rain. We had nothing. You get through the most of October and still very little rain in Gauteng. And suddenly, in the last 10 days, we've had about 150 mils of water just where I live. Okay, rain. Now, the weather patterns are unpredictable. We've caused that. The climate change is causing droughts. So previous catchment areas where we would build dams are no longer the same catchment areas. And that's what happened in Cape Town. So the rains were falling in areas. We had significant rain in the Western Cape, but weren't in the catchment areas. Weren't feeding the dams, weren't feeding the reservoirs, and therefore couldn't be piped to the homes. Almost reached moment zero there, right?
Yeah.
So changing weather patterns, and that's a societal thing, because the impact to the ecosystem is in everything we do every day. Pollution. It's in emissions. It's in, like I said to you, why take 2 flights when you can take 1? Why travel? Why jump in the car and go to run one simple errand when you can wait when you've got 3 errands? Then use your car to go and fulfill 3 different things instead of, going 3 different trips. But it's just a mindset. It's a behavior thing. And, you got to go back to what our folks said to us. Switch the lights off. Stop the leaky tap. Save water. Shower. My son's got the brilliant habit. When he hops into the shower, he puts on his music. And he knows by the end of the second song he's out. If he's still in the shower, the second song, it's too long. Right?
Yes.
So that's the whole behavior change to fix the climate. And that's the things that are being deliberated at COP. Governments can put in guardrails and frameworks, but it's up to us, individuals, homes, families, society, to change our behavior. The second issue is what you talked about, is population growth. More people, 8 billion people on the planet, means more money. It equals more water demand. All these people need more electricity. You need water to cool down the plants. All these people need drinking water. All these people need water to irrigate the lawn. The lawn, by the way, is an extremely expensive thing to maintain. And if you're not collecting grey water to water your lawns, you're delinquent, right?
Yeah.
Then you have the depletion of groundwater. Interesting stat. 56% of India's groundwater the water table has been depleted because of the growing population. So I live in a little community, and here we've banned thinking of boreholes, and people are like, oh, we're running out of water, we need the borehole. We're saying no, actually, the more you take water out of the borehole, with 1,200 houses in this little community, they'll actually deplete the water table completely. We've got dams down here, and the fish need them. Yeah. The fourth is the water infrastructure.
Big one. Big one.
And actually, that's a big problem in our country. We have great rains in our country.
Yeah.
But A, catchment areas need to be changed, and B, the infrastructure is dilapidated. Pumps, pipes, reservoirs, we need new ones for the growth population, for this urbanization. And we need new equipment. Spares are hard to come by, and all of that costs money. Let's not even talk about the corruption, but that's a topic for another day. But
it's a whole other episode. It's a series.
100%. Our natural infrastructure is being ignored. So when you have natural catchment areas, you look at the recent flooding in KZN, the building of big, large, monolithic settlements, retail and commercial and residential, resulted in the natural habitation being removed, and when the water did flow, it just washed everything away.
Yeah.
Whereas that water would not have washed out to the sea if you had natural habitation, and it would feed the ecosystem in the form of precipitation and rainfall and all that. So our natural infrastructure, leave alone infrastructure that we have to build, the natural infrastructure is being broken. And water is wasted. We waste a lot of water.
All the time. We need to be better. We need to be better.
We have to stage this. Now we have this water shedding, and there's a stage 2 or stage 3. I can't keep up with all the stages. But then there was some restrictions saying you should not water your garden using a hose pipe. You can't wash your car. And then I drive around and I see people merrily washing their cars, and then they water the lawn, the sprinklers are on. And then I, being a little cheeky bugger myself, I'd go up to some of my neighbors and say, not on, guys, you can't do this. I'm not very popular, but this is the problem with society. Instant gratification. I want my lawn to be green. I don't care if the neighbor doesn't have water. It's got to be green.
Those uncles are watering their cars, and they water their cars. They don't wash it. They water their cars. They just stand there so the water can run on their cars and their lawn. It's a scary thing. So Dennis, if we bring all of this back home, right? So we speak about sustainability, depletion of natural resources. We mentioned coal, oil, gas, lithium, and then the water crisis, desalination plants, infrastructure. In terms of Hitachi Vantara and powering good, how do we bring it back in terms of the ethos, the buzzwords within the Hitachi Vantara family, and what's being implemented to ensure that we are powering good and being hands-on.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I wouldn't want to turn this into a sales pitch. It's certainly not about selling a Hitachi product or
Yeah.
a solution or whatever. The one thing that resonates very well with me is the company goals. As part of our midterm management plan, 2024 sustainable goals, these have been ingrained into our business plans across the regions, across the globe, across all of our different business units, right? We need to increase our management efficiency and speed. We need to simplify our structure and our impact on the infrastructure in each of the cities that we operate in. We have the 3 pillars of growth: digital, green, and innovation. Finding new ways and better ways of doing things. And even in a micro, my powers are limited. I sit in South Africa and we have an office here, but I can do things. So I've halved the office space. We reduce our footprint. We've removed a whole lot of technology that we didn't need in the office, printers that weren't standing there, reams of paper that we just buy. I don't know how many trees we sacrifice for this. So in our own way, every single one of us within the Hitachi family, we can do things better the way we do it now, better than we're doing it currently, and we can help our customers to do that. So let's take, for example, and to spin off into technology a bit, data centers consume 30 to 40 megawatts of energy. Now, this is astounding. Okay. Some of the smaller data centers for just smaller enterprise organizations, 5 to 6, 7 kilowatts or megawatts. This is a huge amount of energy used to run these data centers, leave alone the cooling required for that, which again is a substantial cost. But simple consolidation exercises and moving things to the cloud and modernizing the applications and the way you do. These are things that are our bread and butter. So staying in my lane as Hitachi Vantara, I can tell you right now, we can make a significant impact on a lot of our customers' consumption of energy and of our natural resources.
Magic. Exciting times going forward indeed. And just in terms of wrapping up, going forward into the, when you leave school or you leave a braai. Let's use a braai because we're adults. Let's use a braai. But for the youngsters listening, this is important. When you leave a braai and you drive home and you'll always recap what happened. You go, this was important. That wasn't. That was funny. And then sometimes in the WhatsApp groups, you'll keep chatting to your friends, whether it's about sport or movies, whatever the case is. Give me like 3 points that's crucial from our chat today that people need to take home and try to implement into their daily lives so that, hey, we can try to fight the good fight and make sure we don't destroy our beautiful planet, even though we're doing it already.
Okay. Put me on the spot here, but I'll tell you what. Well, the first thing is, how do you change mankind? One man at a time. Start with yourself. So when you get home, just review what you're utilizing. How much water, how much energy. Put up your solar geysers, put up your energy saving devices, the light bulbs, and save your water. Restrict the showering times, restrict all of that. Live a simple life. Don't consume. We overconsume everything, but everything can be consumed, with balance. So just change our own lifestyles. Don't drive everywhere. Ride share. These are simple things that we can change right now. You as an individual in your own home and your own family, you can do these things. You don't need Biden or, Rishi or whatever how to do these things. You don't need the city of Tshwane or the city of Joburg to impose water shedding and all of that. Just live a frugal life in terms of what we consume from our own planet. That's the first. I think the second tip I'd give everyone is we have this imbalance where if you can afford it, it's not a problem.
Yes.
So assign a price rather to these things in your mind and calculate it. So if you asked everyone what is an expensive commodity now, they'll all say it's fuel. Fuel prices going up, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you ask them how much does water cost you and how much has it gone up in the last 10 years? Very few people will be able to answer that question. Water is unpriced, by the way. We complain to pay our municipal bills, but arguably water should be ounce by ounce more expensive than gold. You should be paying an absolute fortune for drinking water. because we have neglected to solve this water crisis. So every time you pour yourself a glass of water, or every time you water your garden and it takes, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 liters, assign a price to it and say, that is what I paid. And be extravagant. So assign a price of every time I consume a liter of water, that's 1,000 rand. 1,000 rand gone. And you deduct it from your salary, even if it's just a virtual calculation. And then you realize the impact of what you're doing in a monetary, because we all relate to money. We all understand cost and price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the second thing I would say, and the last thing I would say is, once you've fixed yourself and your family, or you've got some sort of cadence around, reducing your impact in your own circle of influence, be it with your peers, or if you're in a position of influence in your company, your respective offices, make those changes. Take away the printers if you don't need them. Become green friendly. Change all the light bulbs. Take away the dependency on paper. Automate things. Reduce your footprint in terms of your office space. Do you need all these offices? Do you need all of this stuff?
Yeah.
So that's the third thing I say. Once you've kind of fixed yourself, start with your own circle, then move outwards and start to. The biggest change in society always comes by principle of resonance. First, be what it is that you want others to do. Sounds cliched and it's a Mahatma Gandhi thing.
It's important. Yeah.
First do it. First experience it. First realize it. And then by principle of resonance, you would not have to tell somebody. You wouldn't have to coach them. They would just see.
I love that. You know when you watch the movies and then there's like a genie, and then each time you're about to do something bad, the genie's going to pop up. I think that's what we must figure out, how Hitachi can do this. Can we get the dentist pop up? Each time you do something bad, you just pop up and go, no, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
You know what the problem with that? The problem with that is that I would be a hypocrite, right? Because I'm certainly not innocent of all of these things.
I know.
I am guilty. Thursday nights I must go party, and I take a car. I drive 40 k's. All night. We overconsume. We left the lights on. We do all of it. I'm certainly not saying I'm that person that's resonating with great things at the moment. Look, there's other innovations, right? I mean, take the amount of money spent on a journey to the moon versus the money the UAE is spending on things like cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is they fly these planes or these drones up into the sky, and they put
seen it. Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, and then they make rain. Now it's not it's a fabricated rain, but it is still a natural rain. It still comes at a cost. It's still, and still has an impact to the ecosystem. But at least it's better than, what are you going to do if you go to the moon or to Mars? You're going to find water.
Yeah. Not at all. We can't drive that far for water, bro. By the time we bring it back, it's all fallen out. It's evaporated. It's gone. Done. Please. They must figure their lives out. Dennis Naidoo, Hitachi Vantara, Country Manager and Sales Director. A pleasure catching up with you again. Each time I chat to you in this Powering Good series with Hitachi Vantara, I leave with pearls of wisdom. And I'm not just saying that because I need to start reading more. I need to start being a better human. And from today, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start putting my plastic and recycling it. I'm going to do it. Dennis, you've left the imprint. Thank you, my friend. Until next time.
Thank you so much, Dalin. Have a super day, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Bye.